We're before the Rood, the great image of Christ crucified with Mary and John on either side. It was installed in St Stephen's in the 1930s, designed by the famous architect Sir Walter Tapper. The first Christians were fairly reticent about displaying images of the crucifixion. It carried with it, I suppose, connotations of the empire and of defeat. And the earliest known depiction of Christ on the cross that we have dates from the 5th century. It can be found on the doors of the great church of Santa Sabina in Rome. Well worth a visit if you're in the Eternal City. The English always had a great devotion to the crucifixion of Christ. And very early on, from the 6th century, crucifixes were set up as signs of Christian domination, of Christ's dominion, and as places of worship where people would gather and hear the gospel proclaimed. And the crucifix would have dominated churches in England right up until the Reformation, when they were removed because the reformers felt that they were superstitious. St Stephen's stands as part of that great movement in the 19th century, the Oxford movement, that sought to return to the stream of the great Western Christian tradition, desire to return to the devotional practices of our forebears. But I dare say that even in the 1930s, installing this crucifixion scene here in St Stephen's wouldn't have been without controversy. It's a very happy reintroduction. And as we stand looking at it, I think it speaks to us of two profound things. Firstly, as you and I gather Sunday by Sunday beneath this cross, we're reminded that we are all equal recipients of God's love and grace and mercy and forgiveness. We are united, you and I, by that cross. We stand together as equal before it, equal recipients of the love that comes down to us from Calvary. Secondly, it stands in this place in St Stephen's in order to draw our eye onwards, of course, carries our eye onwards through to the altar. We'll be thinking about that in further videos. But we're meant to make the link between the crucifix and what's happening in the altar in the sacrifice of the Mass. On the cross, Christ offers himself for the world's good. And on the altar, we enter into that sacrifice again. We receive sacramentally all that flows from the cross. It's a beautiful prayer of St Francis of Assisi, which we might pray each time we stand before it. We adore you, O Christ, and we bless you, here and in all your churches throughout the world. For by your holy cross, you have redeemed the world.